how we're going to start, Stephen, because the people that are willing to show up and take an hour of their real-time life live, we feel like they deserve just a little bit more.
Yeah, just a little bit of the.
We don't really talk
stuff.
about the show sheet so much. It's just kind of, it's like if you were in the background scenes of watching what the pre-show for a TV live set would be, just people going, oh yeah, so we're going to do this, and this is how this is going to work, but that kind of stuff.
I got you.
Us telling you that at some point you're probably going to lose us, and it's going to feel like we hung up on you, but we didn't. It's just that we're still in a somewhat of the novice range of learning how to use an audio switchboard.
Right.
And sometimes it doesn't always work the same way every time, even though you turn the same knob.
Technology, man. Technology. I work in technology. So, that's right. Unfortunately my day job right now, but, it's, I know how technology can be.
It's my day job too, and that's the only thing that gets us this far.
And the only thing that saves me is that Rusty's willing to take on that burden because I suck at technology.
Oh, man. Haircut alert. Oh, I did get a haircut. I didn't think that was all that noticeable, but
trimmed
yeah,
up
a
there,
little
no
trim.
hat. I think that's how they.
Oh, that's probably what
noticed
they're
the
going
no
for
hat.
with the no hat. Yeah. Oh, Lori made it to a live broadcast. Yes, you did, Lori.
Whoop, whoop.
What's up? Carlton. What's up, Carlton? Good to see you
I'm
back.
on yours, but I need to be on.
We're talking
mine.
your neck of the woods, kind of. Well, in a
Oh, I bet
sense.
Carlton knows everything there is to know about North Wilkesboro.
Yeah. So we're
He's
excited
like
to do this.
Mr. NASCAR fan.
So, Stephen, we'll give you a quick rundown on the show sheet. What I'll do is I'll say we're recording now, and you'll hear me say that. And then it is questionable on whether or not you will hear the next minute to minute and a half of what we do. We just sort of go crazy and hoot and holler and talk about or intro the show. We do a Patreon deal, and we donate all that money to sponsoring drivers and stuff. And we go through everybody who's official sponsors of the show, which is silly. It keeps getting more and more and more.
And
So,
I don't know how to work mute.
Sure one's got to
on
find
my
the mute
computer.
button. And then I'll cut the music, and then you'll hear us come back, and then you'll hear us intro you in, and then it'll seem like it's seamless, even though, we're, like Sherwin said, totally amateur style here.
All right.
We turn into like right now, I think we're just kind of like trying to pre-show this stuff, and then suddenly we turn into these charismatic guys somehow. So,
I don't know what happens. I
think the song does it, man.
Or the song definitely sets the mood.
yeah.
So we have this song, Stephen, that sung by a young artist named Sydney Lett, and it's called "We Are NASCAR," and it's like it's
She gave us permission, by the way.
It's pretty. Yes, we do have legal permission. I think I can find written verbiage that says we have permission. No, she's a good friend of the show, but yeah, and then we just kind of get into it. We don't really do so, Stephen. This isn't really going to be an interview per se. This is going to be you joining us in the studio. You just happen to not be in the studio with us. And, we're going to ask you to tell us things about North Wilkesboro we would never have known otherwise because we weren't fans yet when North Wilkesboro exited the NASCAR schedule.
Yep.
So I think this is going to be – I know I'm going to be having a few moments where flies are flying in and out of my mouth because I'm just listening to what you have to say and going, holy crap.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm try, to do my best. You said I'd bring my A game tonight, and I'll definitely do the best I can. And so
We're
we'll
really
see how
only
it
looking for
goes.
B-
Don't
game, though.
I sometimes
Yeah.
don't make any promises, but
Yeah.
I'll run with whatever you guys want me to do.
Hell, we have our D nights
I
sometimes.
was going to say,
we get deep.
C+ is pretty good, really.
Yeah, hey, D is for done, boys.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, man.
so however you do it's how you do it. And
Yeah.
then just keep that in mind that there's no bar to be set. You just do you, we'll do us, and it's going to be fun.
That's right.
We have like
all
a
right.
motto where it's you learn something, you think a little bit pensively about something that you hear, and then you laugh a lot.
You got to laugh. Yeah, gotta
It's
laugh.
the Jimmy V3, so we don't want anybody to cry really, but sometimes that'll happen.
It'll happen. Racer 24K is back seeing the show live.
Kenny,
Thank you. We got
Kenny
a few
has been here
folks.
for a minute.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
Kenny. It's good to see you, man.
Nice little crowd.
Mick Rose
live,
is here.
so.
Brandon, everybody, Carlton.
Should we fire up?
Let's fire it up. Let's have something. Let's be somebody.
14
We got
watching. That's about 2x.
I got
what we
15
normally
now,
have.
so we're and people will come in and out, and hopefully more in than out. But we'll get started. So with that, Steven, are you ready to roll?
Let's do this.
All right, Sherwin, you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, and like I said, after I say we're recording now, it's questionable on whether or not you'll hear us for the next minute and a half, but stick with us. We're still here. Did you need to get rid of something, Sherwin? You good?
No, I'm good.
All right.
It's never disconnected while we're doing this part of the show. So.
Oh, yeah. We're good to go. All right, here we go. We are recording now.
Now.
Talladega to Daytona, Bristol, Charlotte, it's an we are NASCAR.
Welcome, y'all! That's right. This is a pregame engineer tailgate mirror racing podcast, episode number 130. A nice round number. A multiple of 10, Sherwin? Yeah, you know, that works. That's where we're at right now. It's Thursday, January 25th, 2018. I'm tailgate mayor Rusty Wallace, joining the PTM podcast studio with pregame engineer Andrew Sherwin. What's up, man?
I've been excited for every show we ever do, but I'm excited about this one for a different reason because you, like me, are students of life, and there are things to be learned that we do not know.
Oh, we got a wealth of knowledge on the other end of this thing. Before we get there, though, y'all know how it is. The PTM podcast is sponsored by you. That's right. You go to patreon.com/PTM. Join the What You Drinking Club for as little as $1 a month. Get your free koozies, some stickers and stuff. Best part is, every cent in 2018 we're donating to sponsored drivers. Join the PTM posse today. Be a part of the sport you love. This week's show is brought to you by our official sponsors at the $5 and up per month level. That is Deep Breath, Catherine Kingston, Ashley Stang, Laura Henshaw, Harry Balzania, Mick Rose, Chad Sterling, Aaron Bearden, Robert Keplinger, Tony Saltbrook, Colby McClam, Eric Kepner, Ryan Keeper, Marilyn Best, Patrick Cleary, Jeff Brown, Brandon Crowd, who's on the YouTube right now, Kathleen McDonald, Stacy Wright, and welcome to the PTM Posse, Brandon Carl. Thank you for being part of this. Let's do this, Sherwin.
Why not? Fire it on up.
Oh man, it's I counted beforehand, and I told you there's 19 names there now. Unbelievable support for the community.
You're going to need oxygen soon. After
I know,
you
right?
read that.
I'll be like, all right, let me get back here. I'll be back in a few minutes. But yeah, so cool that people are willing to throw some a little pocket change here and there.
Support what we're trying to do, which is to make life a little bit easier on a local racer.
Right. And as soon as all the stuff happens, y'all, we said it last week, giving money to somebody.
Right. Y'all
You'd
go
think it'd
tweet
be-
Jerry Jordan and say, hey, man, what's going on?
Right.
We be working on that deal with Garrett Smithley.
Yeah.
We'll see how it
We've
goes.
been working, so we'll see what happens. If not, we'll find it. We'll find somebody. But the money keeps piling up, so it's cool. So I think we're getting more and more in terms of what we can commit. So that's really neat. Anyway, let's get on to our guest, dude. So a quick note before we do: how many times have we done driver spotlight? And either this person's first win or first race or last win or most, memorable moment was at North Wilkesboro Speedway. I keep mentioning that Speedway over and over and over again every time that we're doing driver spotlight.
Well, it's super iconic, and that's why I've been doing all the promotion on the Instagram and the Twitter and everything else over the week is, North Wilkesboro was one of the first tracks there was.
Right.
And it was dirt. And then they decided to pave it when when NASCAR said they wanted to be an asphalt series. So it's like now North Wilkesboro is near and dear to the greater generation's version of what NASCAR is.
Right. So our guest tonight, he runs the @SaveTheSpeedway handle on Twitter. He leads the effort to reopen or revitalize North Wilkesboro Speedway. So welcome to the show, Mr. Steven Wilson. What's up, Steven?
Not a whole lot. I really don't run anything. I let everybody else run it for me.
Hey,
it takes a life of its own on.
Good plan.
Fantastic.
That's a good plan.
That's fantastic. And in the pre-show, Steven was telling us every once in a while somebody will mention it, a driver will mention it, or it'll be some sort of spotlight, and suddenly, boom, he's got 300 DMs to deal with. So a lot of sliding into DMs on that deal. But it's really cool to see the passion that people have for those old school tracks and stuff. But before we get too deep and too far, you know how we have to start this thing, Sherwin.
Always.
Mr.
I think
Steve.
I warned Steven about this.
Okay. Mr.
via
Steven,
email.
what you drinking tonight?
You did.
Uh-oh.
Your turn.
Your turn. What you drinking?
You want me to go for? Well, all right, fine. Well, tonight it is a caffeinated drink. No alcoholic beverages for me. I'm taking some Mountain Dew in for tonight, but I do partake in the Yingling. So for anybody out there that likes to drink American-owned beer, company out there, Yingling. Way to go.
Might as well do the oldest brewery, I believe, still in operation in the U.S. With Yingling there. So got the Mountain Dew,
Absolutely.
and that's cool because that's NASCAR right there, Mountain Dew.
Oh, that's
and
NASCAR
88
AF.
Yeah, right. Sherman, what are we drinking on?
Well, it looks like you got some local Atlanta product there
Yes,
that
sir.
we're very appreciative of.
Sweetwater IPA.
Sweetwater.
Yeah.
I've got and we like to be show specific, so I've got a North Carolina beer, originally from California, but decided an East Coast operation was the way to go because the East Coast has been very supportive of Sierra Nevada. So I'm drinking a Torpedo Extra IPA made in Mills River, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. And we might maybe a little later on
We have another
talk
thing.
about the bottle you brought on.
We can make that a whole nother segment.
Yeah. We'll talk about that
especially
in a little bit.
for our crowd. NASCAR crowd likes the reason why we have this.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. So, with that, let's start. Let's kick it off, Stephen. Let's talk about what you're doing and how you got involved with that cause and everything. So maybe just kick us off with that. What's going on and how you got involved with this whole thing.
So really, this effort started back in 2005. There had been some previous efforts about a year or so prior to that had been petition drives to go out there and ask not only the county to be involved, but SMI and the owners at the time, both Bruton Smith and Bob Baer, to either hand the speedway off or sell it or something like that. That really kind of fell short in a lot of aspects, and that's where we kind of picked up the ball at that time. And really, we started a petition drive out there in 2005 to really gain some notoriety and gain some traction onto this. And from that point on, we just became a bigger group that not only just tried to look at the track and try to save the track, but also document the history of the track because, it had been such a staple in the NASCAR and racing community for over 50 plus years, long even predating NASCAR itself. So, we kind of went out there and we've since then put a lot of research into not only just what it would take to put the track back together, but just the history of the track in general. So I kind of got involved on the website, social media, public relations side of all of this thing, and it's really just exploded from there.
Well, that's really that's cool. The way you got started. How about this one? What is the current state of North Wilkesboro? Like, where are they at right now? And what's the speedway like? And are there any events going on or anything? And what that will lead into the next question, of course. But what's the current state?
So the current state is, as everybody knows, a couple of years ago when SMI decided that they were going to buy out New Hampshire Motor Speedway, that the 100% total ownership of the track became under the umbrella of SMI and Bruton Smith. Each of them prior to that had owned about 50%. So that kind of led into a couple of years of odds and end things. And right now it's kind of the track sits. The track is just dormant at this time for most activity, or really all activity. If anybody's been to our Facebook page, they would have seen that, there was a motorcycle commercial actually produced out there late last year, and these things have gone on over time in productions and things like that ever since the track closed actually in 1996. I mean, a lot of people know the Gong Show that Roush Fenway put on many years ago, but a lot of those activities on a small level have never really stopped. It's just the racing open to the public, tours and things like that have ceased to exist at North Wilkesboro Speedway. So right now it's kind of just, a track that sits, and it's just used on a time-to-time basis for a production like the motorcycle commercial last year. And, that's kind of where it sits at this moment.
Do they, are there employees at all, or do they, mow the grass and sweep off the pavement and everything, or is it just kind of as people come in to do an event, it's kind of up to them?
Well, there is an employee of the track. The employee of the track has been there since the 1960s. He is the caretaker of the track, and he has over time always kept the maintenance up, such as cutting the grass. When things like this occur, he would usually is a point of contact, as well as there is another point of contact there in Wilkes County that coordinates a lot of these things through SMI. It was part of the deal many years ago that when the track was sold from the Staley family and from the Combs family, that the caretaker who had been there and had worked right alongside Enoch since, the founder of the track since the 1960s, would continue to stay an employee of the track. And that was how the track was sold at the time. And to this day, he is still technically an official employee of the track that is taking care of it. The track is also used for agricultural means, such as hay fields and things of that nature over the years, and it's used for hay storage. And I mean, the operations of the track really, from that aspect of things, really haven't stopped. It's just, the front-facing motorsports and public venue has ceased to exist. But other things like that have continued on, just as they had, when Enoch was still running the track.
Interesting. Yeah. What's his name? Do you know his name? I'm very curious.
Yeah. Paul Call is the caretaker there.
Paul Call. I'm gonna raise a drink right here.
I swear I've heard
Paul
somebody
Call.
mention. I think he's been mentioned by Ryan McGee or Marty Smith on one of their shows.
On a little
Paul Call.
spotlight.
That sounds so familiar.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, he is a celebrity in Wilkes County, and he's a celebrity outside of Wilkes County. Everybody in the racing community knows that Paul Call has been there for so many years, that he has been taking care of the track for all of these years. And, a lot of these, not only the drivers, but media and people that grew up in the sport know Paul Call from going to that track in the 90s and even prior to that.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And so for the folks that are listening in that may not even know anything about North Wilkesboro Speedway, because it's been 21 years since it's been in operation at the Cup level, Wilkes County is where Junior Johnson is from. And moonshining, just like in Dawsonville, Georgia, was a big, big deal there in the late 30s, early 40s, probably longer than that. North Wilkesboro Speedway is very much entrenched in that southeastern lore of moonshine and racing cars.
Mm-hmm. So there's an article on SB Nation that let me see who wrote it right quick. It is Jeremy Markovich. And I read this because it's long. It's like one of those long form, you have some time, you sit down and read it. And this is great because he talks about Paul Call. And he says Paul Call barely ever speaks. Everybody says he's quiet. You walk up to him and he asked him, "How long you been working here?" And he says, "That's my business." And then he says, "You got time to chat?" And he says, "I don't chat." That's it.
I mean,
straight up.
That is atypical of Paul Call. Paul has avoided the media for all of these years. He has he has been at the track and he keeps to himself. But as I said, he is very much a celebrity there in the county and outside of the county. And they don't call Wilkes County the moonshine capital for no reason. I think I'm just going to leave it there.
I hear you.
Yeah.
It's okay. That's
Yeah.
fine. I mean, we didn't grow up in that lore, but we certainly learned about it in our 20s and early 30s, and we
Sure.
understand what's going on there.
Sure. I got family on my dad's side who was into it, but they were into everything. Jeez.
Everybody, yeah. That's what happens when you grow up in East Tennessee or whatever.
Yeah, right. But yeah, that's and one of the monikers we've used here before is old school cool, and that sounds like old Paul Call right there, old school cool kind of guy.
Yeah, he feels like the Gordon Perkle of North
Right,
Wilkesboro Speedway.
right. A little less talkative.
Gordon's pretty talkative, though. That's a good point.
Yeah. So that's the current state of it, and what's going on. As far as Save the Speedway goes, what are the next steps? What would you think would be like short-term successes that could get the track revitalized?
Short-term success has always been with the track, and it's always been laid with working with the county itself, the county and the town of North Wilkesboro and Wilkesboro there. Over the years, the town and the counties, the two towns and the county have really come together, and they've put on a concerted effort to try and change or try and do something that could change the status of the track itself. You know, as you know, we continue to work with them. We continue to work with outside partners. You know, we've spoke with them. We've spoke with many other people down there to see what the next and best steps are. At this time, it really is, you know, as we continue to say, for anything to happen, the two towns in the county, they're very much willing to do many things that need to be done down there. So, I mean, for example, I mean, a lot of people on social media, the media itself, we've heard a lot about the water situation down there that, you know, back in the 1990s, you know, when the track closed, the track was running off water pumps and tanks, as well as sewage systems with tanks. Septic tanks into it. The county and the towns have been very forthcoming in the fact that they're willing to work with somebody. The city water is right outside of the track on 421, right under the superstructure for the grandstands. And there's a possibility that there's, you know, to bring that sewer, which is less than about mile and a half or so away from the track, and connect it directly into the track itself to bring in some of those infrastructure needs. So, you know, unfortunately, you know, with the county themselves, they're not in a position yet until there's a changeover or there's some moving forward, such as either SMI themselves say that they're ready to do something with the track, or there's either a lease or a sale of the track. In short term, it would be optimal to get a lease because SMI has shown the willingness to do so. But with a long-term goal is to purchase the track outright and return racing there in some form or fashion to Wilkes County, as well as turning it into a multi-purpose facility.
Mm-hmm. We have a question. So we have several questions from what we call the PETM posse, the listeners, the fans, and all that. But one that I think is very pertinent to what you're just talking about as far as selling the track. Cameron Tracy, thank you for the question. At Conrail_1 says, do you think if a driver a la Dale Jr. or, you know, like what Tony did with Eldora or something were to buy the track, would that make it, or could that help make it succeed? Is that what you're looking for, is kind of the angel investor type of person that brings their brand to it and brings their style, or are you talking about more like the county buying it back and you know, sort of grassrootsing it?
So there's really two answers into that, and I'm going to try and go through both of them with you. As far as, you know, like a Tony Stewart or Dale Jr. that have been asked pretty much ad nauseum, I would say thousands of times, if not more, on social media, would they be willing to come up there and do something with North Wilkesboro? And, there's no commitment out of either one of them. Tony Stewart, as himself, is really involved in the dirt track racing with Eldora. He owns the dirt series out there that he's running across the United States. He's got Stewart Haas Racing, obviously, that he's taking care of. So he's more or less in the sprint cars, dirt tracks, things of that nature. I mean, Tony Stewart would absolutely be an asset to the track to bring somebody like him in, or even Dale Jr. for that matter. And just a couple of years ago with Dale Jr., I will say that the old Unical 76 ball that used to sit at the end of pit road, the exit of pit road there,
cool.
He did take that from the track, and it now sits on his property. But that's as far as his kind of commitment to North Wilkesboro has really ever gone. As far as again, somebody like a Dale Jr. or even a Kevin Harvick or any driver, Brad Keselowski out there that could bring a brand to the track would obviously make life a lot easier. Now, we have a lot of people surrounding us that we are involved with that have been in racing all their lives. And so it's not that we have a disconnect from that. It's just the fact that it doesn't seem to be right now that their willingness to add to their portfolio, that they're looking and seeking for other things right now. Obviously, Brad Keselowski shut down his truck team. He's looking to do something else, as I already mentioned with Tony Stewart and his dirt and sprint cars. But, with the county itself, the county could facilitate a potential either lease or sale. And that's something that we think that working with multiple parties together, not only the county themselves, but an outside party, somebody that's done the research like us, that knows what's wrong with the place, what needs to be done, has some pricing and things like that. I think it's really going to take a multifaceted approach in the towns, the county, an outside party. It's all really going to have to come together and work together on this project to see it across the finish line. And we have the town, we have the counties, the two towns and the county itself. It's just we've got to get this across the finish line somehow.
Mm-hmm. Get it across the finish line. I like it.
Yeah,
Slipped it in there.
It's
pun intended.
Yeah, well done there. using the racing language. I think so. When I read this question, and I maybe even been probably a little harsher on the old Twitter than I probably should have, but I said, hey man, how about ask a question that doesn't have a one-word answer? Because from my perspective, based on everything I've read and seen about North Wilkesboro Speedway, the answer to this is no, because unless the person who buys it is Bruton Smith or ISC, we're not going to see touring NASCAR series racing there. So I think what we would like to see is maybe something more like what Stephen was just saying, where the county either chooses to use it as an asset, as a fair kind of thing, or putting on concerts and then occasionally having a race or whatever it is. But
keep in mind, Tony buys Eldora, and now suddenly they have a touring NASCAR series there.
Yeah, well, but here's the thing. Here's the major difference between what's going on with North Wilkesboro Speedway and what went on with Eldora. Eldora had a viable product. They had a fan base. Everybody loved going there and watching the sprint car races. The family that owned the track at the time was just saying, hey, I think we're running slap out of effort with this thing.
Yeah, the passion ran out.
Who is the right person to come in and finish what we started?
Mm-hmm.
And Tony was the right person. See, North Wilkesboro is starting from scratch. They don't have anything. There's no momentum of fans coming in there 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah, okay.
To say, all right, well, we're gonna switch gears to, we're gonna do super late model, or we're gonna do K&N East, or whatever the next series that makes a little bit of noise. Maybe they figure out how to do drag racing or whatever it is.
Yeah.
They currently don't really have it. So there's no passing the torch. It's you got to come in, spend a lot of money, and invent something.
Yeah.
Is that an accurate statement, Stephen?
To some degree, yes. The the track has not had a NASCAR touring series since 1996. It's not had any motorsports activity since 2011 when it opened briefly. But what we kind of saw in 2009 to 2011 out there is it took almost minimal effort out there to get several thousand people sit in the grandstands. And, what I mean by that is the company at the time really didn't have the marketing budget. They just didn't have the money to go out there and put anything on radio or television. They strictly kind of worked through social media, word of mouth, and things like that. And the people showed up. And they showed up to the first race, and it kind of crushed them about just really how many people even showed up in the first place. North Wilkesboro has never really lost its momentum in that regard. What needs to happen in the modern day is that obviously in 2018 or 2019 or whenever if something were to occur, North Wilkesboro has to reinvent itself, and it has to reinvent itself as a multi-purpose facility, as we've continued to say for quite some time now. You look at every track out there. You look at Charlotte Motor Speedway, for example. I use them as an example all of the time. They run 100 non-motorsports events per year. And this is the kind of concept that other tracks are now starting to do. You look at Daytona, look at them. They never ran anything 2 cup races a year, the Rolex 24, motorcycle event, and that was it. But now they're going down there and putting concerts on, and they're doing so many other activities within the racetrack. Motorsports, as we all know, is in a decline, and nobody can really kind of say otherwise. I mean, we understand this, but it's changing the way that the track would have to reinvent itself and give some kind of unique product back to the fans across multifaceted entertainment. It's the largest seated facility in Western North Carolina with 40,000 grandstand permanent seats.
Wow, I didn't know
with an infield that can handle another 10 to 15,000. So it is a large, vast, open whiteboard of space to do almost anything. And we've looked at everything from, concerts to fairs. The fair actually in Wilkes County used to be held there when the Staleys owned it. The Merle Fest is a huge event that brings nearly 100,000 people to the county every year. There's not, where do 100,000 people go and stay in Wilkes County? Well, they don't. They stay outside of the county. Well, the track provides camping and parking and things, infrastructure to the county to ease that crush across the county. So that's kind of where North Wilkesboro would have to turn into. They would have to rebuild a brand that's multifaceted across many different spectrums of the entertainment, venues or genres out there, that everything from family to religious or non-religious to sporting events to motorsports to, one-on-one drags to concerts and fairs and parking and camping and everything that comes along with this. And that's where North Wilkesboro Speedway could, in fact, rebuild a brand today, because you just look at Bowman Gray Stadium that has 10 to 12,000 people show up for a modified race. And that's 60 miles down the road in Winston-Salem. So, I mean, you could get some of that and bring that back to Wilkes County again.
I just typed out Bowman Gray earlier in the show notes here, just as we're going along, and things that remind me. Speaking of things,
not just that, Hickory, even closer.
Yeah.
They've still got racing at Hickory.
And so I think you've hit on a good point there with the uniqueness, and I think it's a good coincidence, Sherwin, that we just had Georgia Hannenberry last week talking to us about the Chili Bowl and everything. And I had said on there, I said, it felt like this year there was more attention and more everything, just the snowball effect. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it felt like this was the biggest it's been. And she said, yes, absolutely. Having been there herself, she said, absolutely. The hype was there. The hype was real. It was there. and she felt that. So in a similar way, and I think what they bring is that unique perspective in a unique place too. In middle of Oklahoma, where else where else can people go for racing there? And I think in a way, Wilkes County there, just as Stephen has just said, offers a unique venue that can do a lot of this stuff.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. When I still lived in Moxville, which Stephen's probably familiar with, or maybe knows where that's halfway between Statesville and Winston. I met you at Bristol, right? And so we took different paths, and my path was right past North Wilkesboro Speedway. And I had not studied the path enough to know that that's what I was seeing. But I drove past it, and right there on the highway, I mean, the grandstands that stick out on that end, on the south end, they basically damn near hang over the highway. It looks really cool.
And you said seats 40,000?
Currently, yes, there's 40,000 permanent seats within the facility.
That's nuts. I mean, that's 80% of the size of Georgia Tech Stadium, Sherwin.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's a big – I mean, that's big.
Yeah, and it's a 3/8 oval.
Yeah.
So for the folks listening that maybe you don't know,
5/8.
Probably do.
It's a 5/8.
5/8,
mile.
Yeah. Sorry,
Other direction.
I just said it wrong. Yeah, it's a .625. But it's got some really unique terrain in that you kind of go downhill on one straightaway and you go uphill on the other, and they just never bothered to change the grading because why change it?
Absolutely.
Well, the grading that's there at the track was not by design. Originally, the track, when it was carved out in essentially just a cornfield and just a field out there in Wilkes County, North Carolina, there was about $1,500 or so between three people that made the investments into this track. Well, they run out of money, and they had to put a race on, and they needed to get people back in there to recoup their investment. So that's why the terrain, or the uphill-downhill configuration, originally existed. And when it was paved, they never changed it. And it produced some of the greatest racing that I think people can arguably say today, all the way back from the 50s when it was originally paved to the 90s. Some of the greatest racing side by side, door to door, beating and banging, fenders, chrome horns. It all came out there. And it wasn't by design. It was by purely a coincident accident that they ran out of money and they had to go run a race in 1947.
So, Stephen, have you been to any of those? I mean, I know you said it closed in 96. Did you grow up going to those races or anything at North Wilkesboro?
No, I actually grew up going to Martinsville, so right across the mountain. And so they're so close together. But no, I had never been to a race there. In fact, I had never been to a race there until they reopened in 2010. So I knew about the track. I had done a lot of research on the track, and I watched a lot of races from the track. But I had never actually been there because I grew up going to Martinsville.
Yeah. Yeah, and Sherwin, it's funny. You had said, while you were in Moxville, we both went to Bristol. But then one of the other times, I drove up to Moxville, and then we drove to Martinsville from there.
Right.
So
I didn't live there very long, but I lived.
We went to some damn races.
75 miles from Martinsville.
Yeah.
And boy, is that experience a cool thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a little detour now that we're deep into it, and we'll get right back into North Wilkesboro here in a bit. But a quick detour to car number 30. It's our 130th episode. Let's talk about car number 30. Sherwin, car number 30 has one win, and I shouldn't have sent you the show sheet. You would have never guessed, so it wouldn't matter. But I
might have guessed none.
Yeah, right. I was amazed that there was only one. I felt like I had seen a lot of number 30 out there, and figured just by happenstance.
So for some reason, I thought Robbie Gordon had driven the 30 for Richard Childress, but I guess not. It was the 31.
Maybe it's possible. Let me look it up.
Or
NASCAR
maybe after
30
Jeff
car.
Burton got in there. I don't know. Anyway, not
Something
trying to
like
digress.
that. No,
really, but,
Robbie. Nope, Robbie wasn't in there.
Yeah.
Jeff Burton was there for 14 races. It looks like led 40 laps. But has one win with Speedy Thompson.
Speedy.
We've talked about him before. He has 2 races in the number 30, and he won one. Why not?
Well, why the hell not?
That's just what he does, you know. Michael Waltrip raced in
I
the
knew
30
he
the
raced
most.
in that car.
Yeah, 265 races. Holy crap. 15 top 5s, but no wins. And the next most driven, Walter Ballard, and he's going to be our spotlight driver this week. 161 races, 4 top 5s in there. Mr. Walter, by the way, I mean, just great name to start with. If you're named Walter, I think you got to go by Walter. I know some people named Walter that like have a nickname or go by something else. I think more people should just go by Walter. But born in Houston, Texas, 1933, he made 1 start in 1966. Sherwin, do that math. 33 to 66. He started in NASCAR at 33 years old.
What?
Right? You hear what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make sure you're there. So his
I
first
read it already. So.
Oh, yeah. So his first start was 1966, 33 years old. That comes into play in a minute because Kyle Busch is 32 years old, by the way. And we have some news there. But then he took 5 years off. So now he's 38 years old, running in 1971 in his dad's car. He finished 10th in points that year. He was a Rookie of the Year. Sophomore season the very next year, he finished 7th in points. And real quick, so shout out to Steven here. I had to look this one up. He had 12 races and 2 top 10s at North Wilkesboro Speedway from 1971 to 1977.
Nice.
So, yeah, there's that. He retired in 2005. Currently lives. In other words, we don't have to take. I don't have my hat today, but we don't have to take hats off. But we will go drinks up.
Yeah.
Charlotte, North Carolina is where he resides at the age of. I put 35 in the show notes. That's funny. It's
95.
Yeah, it's mostly a 3. It's an 8. He's at the age of 85. So drinks up, hats stay on for good old Mr. Walter Ballard. So, Stephen, have you ever heard of Walter Ballard prior to that?
I can't say that I ever have.
We try to go with somebody who's just totally off the wall.
Off the wall, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows who Michael Waltrip is. It doesn't make sense to do a driver spotlight on Michael Waltrip.
Exactly.
Just watch Race on Fox and watch him doing the what do they call that where he's down in the pit lane doing the thing?
Spilling tacos into Denny Hamlin's wedge port.
Right. And say what you want. I love that segment.
Anyway, do too. I like it a lot too.
So it's silly season. We just mentioned Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is 32 years old. This guy, what was it? Walter Ballard started at 33 years old. Yet Kyle Busch at 32 years old.
It's won 40.
43 races? 42 races?
Yeah, it's 40 plus Cup.
Yep.
Cup. Right around 90 Xfinity and in the 40-somethings in the trucks.
Yeah. And he had some comments about NASCAR promoting these young quote-unquote drivers. I thought it was funny that he's I'm trying to use PC words here, complaining about – he's bitching about NASCAR.
Well, it's like essentially he's bitching about something that NASCAR has done for – I want to say 15 years. He used to have a sponsor partner in Gillette called the Young Guns, which is usually between 6 and 8 guys. Mm-hmm. There is a Young Guns commercial with Dale Jr. and Ryan Newman in it. Mm-hmm. Dale Jr. being retired now. It's been a minute since they started promoting rookies and sophomores and young drivers. Like, you know what? I actually loved this when I saw it because it allowed me to create a tremendous amount of attention on Twitter because, of the Kyle supporters that we have in our camp in terms of listenership, it's not the highest chunk of people because I'm sure that there's a lot of people that have listened to us speak about Kyle a certain way. We've always been very, we've praised his ability to drive a car.
Absolutely.
We have criticized his behavior.
Sure.
But I think this is like him going totally WWE heel and saying, I have an opportunity to create
drama,
commotion.
Commotion.
when we're not even racing. We're not even going to be racing for a while. And he stirred up all kinds of stuff that people are mad about. It's like, man, you guys are like, you just got trolled. Like, if you're mad because Kyle Busch said he didn't like the way they're promoting young drivers, you got trolled.
Maybe. He just did. It felt like a hot mic take. And reading the transcript and stuff and listening to it, I was like, well, he's not wrong. They're definitely promoting the young drivers, but it's not at the cost of veteran drivers. So there's like the half and half, right?
So that's what I said.
Yes, they're absolutely.
I said that you have to promote the young guys because that's how you get young people to pay attention. Oh my, there's somebody that's 22 years old is going to race. Somebody that's 19 years old is going to race. Somebody that's 25. That guy's my age. Maybe he's going to be really good. Maybe I'll latch on to him and I'll just stay with him for 20 years.
Right.
Whatever that is, like, that's real. So what I said about it was a young driver who's got a big sponsor behind him and driving for a big team, and y'all know who we're talking about, they don't have success equity. They don't have performance equity. So they have to have the backing and the support and the advertising and the marketing. Kyle Busch doesn't need any extra help.
Right.
He's like going to set the record for most total NASCAR wins before his career's over.
Yes. Yep.
Like, so what, I mean, how about you chill out? I think, but at the same time, I'll flip right over to the other side and say, I thought what he was doing is funny because he's bringing attention to himself when NASCAR wouldn't. And what I really thought was funny was Steve O'Donnell saying, I actually like what Kyle Busch is doing. I really don't like what Ryan Newman's doing because that guy is nothing but negative all the time. Kyle Busch might piss you off one day, but he's always promoting NASCAR.
And then OD Steve had
and
to,
his fans love him.
Yeah. He kind of backtracked. Not really backtracked either, though. OD Steve was like,
Well,
I called Ryan. We're cool. Speaking of hot takes, Twitter
takes.
lets you do a hot take whenever you want.
Oh yeah,
And so he's like, whatever, that happened. But one thing this year especially is I think the young drivers are there. There's more than I can remember seeing in the 15 years we've been fans. So yeah, big deal there. Steven, we've been ignoring you for a while, but we get on our soapboxes, man, and that stuff happens. What are your thoughts on that deal?
Well, there's a lot to take into that. NASCAR has really put in an initiative over the last couple of years of not just developing drivers into 3 touring series, nationally touring series, but they've started to branch out and really start digging very, very deep and harnessing that talent that now starts to come out of your K&N East and West series, your modified series, or even your local tracks now. I mean, you look at all of the efforts now, with every, NASCAR Next program, looking for the diversity program, you look at any of these programs now, and they're not just looking for drivers that can just come up and just run in these series. They're looking for drivers that can be the next face of this sport. And honestly, when you look at it, they were ahead of the bell curve many years ago because you look at the succession of Tony Stewart going, you look at Jeff Gordon leaving, you look at now Dale Jr. going, in the next couple of years you should see Johnson and some of the others go out of the sport. So now they're ahead of that bell curve to craft the next generation of drivers to take their space or take their place in the sport, but also create a whole ecosystem around them at the same time. And, I think that's something that they've never done before, and they're really starting to embrace this.
So I thought this was great, and I don't know the answer, but Steven, I'm betting you do. Mark Kudlakick, sorry, Mark, I've butchered your name there, but he says, trivia question, what current active Monster Energy Cup driver what's the only one to have won at North Wilkesboro Speedway? I don't know the answer to that. 90. Current
driver.
He says current driver. Current driver.
There is a current driver. In fact, there's two Monster Energy drivers right now that have competed on the surface of North Wilkesboro Speedway. Chase Elliott won a past series race back there in 2010.
Wow.
Driving for his dad. in the number 9 Aaron's machine out there.
How cool is that he's
fun-
back in the 9 and he won at North Wilkesboro in the 9? All right, I'm digging this.
Yeah, so a fun fact on that one, he won the race. Immediately after winning the race that night, they tore his entire car down, stripped it completely, the motor, the engine, transmission, everything out of it because they couldn't believe that he actually won the race. He was 14 years old at the time when he won this, and his dad was on the phone. Bill got on the phone. He was a little bit hot that they had tore the whole race car down, basically sitting in the garage after the win, and he said he would never go back and race in the Pass Series again. Well, the very next year, he never went and raced in the Pass Series again. He went on to the K&N Series, and the rest is history. The other driver that's actually raced on the surface out there is Ryan Blaney. He actually raced out there for an event, too. So, I mean, there's a couple of drivers right now that have been on that surface.
I would never have guessed that it's two of the young guns that we were just talking about. Like
Right.
you would think it. I was trying to go deep. I was like, all right, well,
so when somebody asked me what Cup drivers got to win there, I'm thinking in a Cup race. So that's why I got distracted. I'm like,
I was thinking like Morgan Shepherd maybe drove there.
yeah.
I'm trying to go like that direction, but the fact that it's two of the youngest people. That's crazy.
Derek Cope didn't win a race at North Wilkesboro Speedway in a Cup car, did he?
I don't know.
I don't know.
So
we got.
If he did, honestly, I would have to look that one
I
up.
thought his only win was the Daytona 500 when Dale Earnhardt blew a tire like entering turn 4 on the last lap of the race.
So speaking of Daytona 500s, Danica has finalized her ride with Premium Motorsports. So I don't know. That felt like a given that it's gonna happen. I know there's so much work that these folks have to go through to make it happen, but it felt like there's no way this isn't gonna happen. So, but it's cool that Premium Motorsports they get some airtime and get some. Whatever, commercial?
Well, I think what we heard is that while it's pretty awesome that GoDaddy understands what they have in marketing power with Danica Patrick, is that they weren't bringing even full single race sponsorship. So it was going to take a team off the beaten, off the tier, so to speak, to accept this responsibility of providing a car. I think it's cool that they're going back to the 7 that she entered the sport with. So it's going to be a real similar look to when she entered NASCAR. But, I don't think they're bringing the full – I mean, what is it to race at Daytona? I would say it's probably – if you're in a Hendrick Motorsports car, I would say that sponsorship for that race alone is probably in the $1.2 million range.
Probably.
Because if you just look at TV exposure, because that's what all that sponsorship is valued at. And then the rest of the year, obviously, those single races get a little bit less expensive. And we know that it costs $26 million to put a winning race car on the racetrack for a 38-race season.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at $650,000 to $750,000 a race.
Right.
Just to be there.
Right. And so you double that up for
I would say double it
Daytona.
Double it for Daytona, and you're probably looking at $1.2, $1.3 million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So no, that's cool. And I guess she's still looking for that ride in Indy, although isn't there like a press conference coming up where they're fixing to announce something and everybody it's like one of those worst kept secret things.
It looks like there's 3 teams, but Ed Carpenter Racing, the ECR of the IndyCar world.
Mm-hmm.
That's not Earnhardt Childress. That's Ed Carpenter. It looks like that's probably the number one likeliest place for her to be.
Yeah. All right. Let's go back to North Wilkesboro. So we have some questions from the PTM posse, a few more. And so, Stephen, take a swig of that Mountain Dew and get ready to drop some knowledge on us here. I like this one from Andrew Cansian at KHANTZIAN. Of the drivers racing today who never had a chance to race at North Wilkesboro, whose driving style fits the track the best? What kind of driving style is like the I don't know, the most successful one, and who do you think has that style?
Oh man. Well, I mean, honestly, you got to look back at some of the drivers that did win there over their time. I mean, you look at Dale Earnhardt that won there. You look at some of the drivers of that caliber. It's a tough racetrack, and it's very tough mentally, physically, mechanically. It just takes everything out of the car. You saw a lot, as I said earlier in the show, about side by side, door to door, chrome horn racing at that track. I would think, honestly, just based on the performance level we've seen out of Kyle Busch at a place like Bristol, that he could potentially tame that track out there just because of how physically and mentally and just mechanically demanding that track is. And North Wilkesboro really puts that back in the driver's hands. There's no aero out there. There's no tires that are going to help you out. There's nothing that's going to do anything to help you but what you are sitting in that seat. And I think he would probably be, right now, arguably one of the best. I think, Kevin Harvick, that could potentially, he's a closer a lot of times, and you see him kind of being a little bit scrappy. I think he would be pretty good. I think the drivers that you see that just win continuously on these 1.5 mile racetracks out there, no offense to Martin Truex Jr.
I was
or
about to
somebody
say
like
Martin
that.
Truex. Is that what we're talking about?
I just don't see it right now. I know he won at Darlington. Darlington is a tough racetrack. In fact, the surface is nearly similar to North Wilkesboro Speedway today as it was even 5 or 10 years ago. Just because of the way that they lay the asphalt out there. But yeah, I just kind of don't see a driver like that winning or having as much of success as you would have somebody like a Kyle Busch that has tamed Bristol multiple times across multiple series.
Yeah. How about Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney?
Well, Chase Elliott, I mean, he won a race there,
right?
I wasn't really leaving him out for any particular reason. It's just I just think his driving style with Kyle Busch would right now probably be that. Chase, being in these heavier cars, bigger cars than he was at North Wilkesboro before, I think it might be a challenge for him. And I would love to see him get in a car out there and honestly see what he could do with these bigger, heavier cars. But I think he would do good.
So you talked about the beating and banging and the close finishes and stuff. I would say this is a challenging question, but I really like the question from Frank Villat at Frank Villat. He says 5 of the final 6 Cup races at North Wilkesboro had 7 or fewer cars on the lead lap at the finish. Is there anything that you think about today's NASCAR and either the cars, their drivers, or the style or anything that you think would create a more competitive race than now than it was in the last 5 of 6 there?
Yeah, so honestly, I'm not going to get into the engineering part of this because I'm nowhere near an engineer. I can talk enough to give you some good examples. So when I give you the answer, I just want you to know I'm not an engineer. They've got to get rid of and do something with this aero in these cars. These cars are just two-way air dependent on one another out there. If a car can get around one another, they're gone. Clean air is king. You can just run away with the field at that point. And this just isn't just these 1.5 mile racetracks anymore. This is starting to spread across multiple racetracks. I think also going with a softer tire out there, which would tear up the tires, let them last a little bit less than we're seeing with these harder tire compounds that have been introduced over the years, especially these multi-tread compounds out there. I know that they do it for safety in some aspects, and I think you could build the safety into some softer compound tires out there. But also, I think they need to start looking at putting in asphalt that is much different, much coarser, like at Darlington. Darlington actually engineers in a gravel and sandy asphalt, which is much, much different than what you would see at another racetrack. Like you just take Texas, for example, that just recently went under a pave. It doesn't tear the tires up at those racetracks, so you're not constantly having to battle the car out there. I think if we could start getting some of those things back and giving it to the driver versus, being engineered in a car, I think you would see a lot of races, or you'd see a lot of closer competition in the sport. And again, I'm not an engineer, but those are just my thoughts and opinions on it.
Well, there you go. So is that what do you think North Wilkesboro would come back with in terms of a track compound?
So,
or what would be ideal for that?
So North Wilkesboro Speedway is currently paved with a non-polymer asphalt. It takes a lot of its characteristics from, as I described, from Darlington, which is a sandy, gravelly type of asphalt. The polymer mixes is where you start seeing this very smooth, very slick, no kind of pitting or any kinds of issues with the track as far as that's concerned. So a non-polymer asphalt, and I actually can give you the answer to this one because, well, we talked to the paving company that paved North Wilkesboro multiple times, and they said, don't ever put a polymer asphalt onto this racetrack. You're asking for trouble. You're not going to get the racing competition out of it. And to go with a non-polymer asphalt, which has a higher sand to gravel mixture than you would have in a polymer asphalt.
Got it. Okay. Sherwin, I'm going to give this one to you, Travis Campbell, at TravisC_48. And thanks for sending the question, Travis. It's been a while since I think I've interacted with you, so it's cool to see your name up here again. How long do you think it'll take the Chevy teams to get the Camaro up to speed?
So Chase Elliott tested at Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Stepped out a little bit in turn 4.
Yep.
Effed up the primary car.
That'll happen.
Went to the secondary. Learned some things. Of course, they're not going to tell anybody what they learned, but based on some of the things that I've listened to in the off season, podcasts mainly, I would say that Chevy did more homework than they ever done on any body style of any car they've ever made than they've done for this Camaro as a race car. They designed the Camaro to be the NASCAR race car. So I would say it wouldn't – I'm not saying they're going to win the first 5 races. I'm just saying they did their homework. They're aware. Right. They know what this car can do. It's a matter of, is Goodyear bringing anything different, or is the Hawkeye NASCAR inspection system, is it going to change what the things they've been working are? Because I think, like some of the racers have said, that you'll probably get a pass the first few weeks. Like, hey, Hawkeye didn't like what you're doing here. You're probably going to have to make some changes. Mm-hmm. And then they will, and then teams will either make the changes and still have success, or they won't have success, or they won't make changes and they'll get in trouble. But I want to slip back just a second.
Okay.
Talking about that polymer asphalt.
You say the word polymer in front of Sherwin, and you're going to get some comments.
Half of my degree is in polymers. So. But what I wanted to say was, we speak with reverence now about Darlington, but when it was repaved, the first 3 races there, you could take 2 tires. Like, they didn't get the pavement right there. It's been long enough since they paved it that it's back to being what Darlington was.
Yeah.
So we have to be real careful when we talk about what a repave really means, because the bottom line is
Atlanta on that.
The bottom line is, no matter what you put down, you need age to make it be special. And so, I think it's great, especially at a shorter track like North Wilkesboro. It's definitely good advice not to put down a long-lasting asphalt, because you're not seeing the same speeds and the same G-forces and slip forces that you see at a track like a Texas or whatever. We saw that mentioned in a thing where somebody said they didn't like what they saw at Texas. I loved what I saw at Texas. the fact that they flattened that 1 and 2 corner and that entry and it's all different, I thought it was fantastic. I thought that was probably some of the best racing we've seen at Texas. But we all have a different opinion on what we think is a good race. And that's what we have to be cognizant of, too.
Boy, I was thinking of that earlier with Frank's question about creating a more competitive race than what we've seen in the past.
Right,
and I was thinking, what is a competitive race? If those 7 that are on the lead lap are just trading paint and trading first position, then that's a competitive race. But it's just among those 7, but they deserved it, I guess. It's an interesting
it's not likely that we would see that, but you're 100% right. If that were the case,
drinking word,
then it would absolutely be a competitive race. I think, if we think about what NASCAR has done in order to capture more attention, keep more eyes on the prize, et cetera, 2 wide restarts and the wave around rule and the lucky dog rule are going to suggest that at a short track, there's no way you'll ever end up with only 7 cars on the lead lap unless there are only 9 cars left in the race.
I agree that the rules have made that not happen. And Travis, if I'm answering your question, Daytona is going to be, as always, a coin flip or a toss-up. I think Chevy stands a good chance there to bring something new and something different and something they've been testing. And like Sherwin said, that they've been working on for so long. Who knows? That could happen. The 1.5 miles, you can't bet against Toyota after last year on that kind of track. So when's the first time we're going to a little bit something different, early in the year? I could see within the first 8 or 10 races at a Bristol or at a...
I'd say at a short track first.
Or even, short track or even Phoenix.
That to me, that's a 1 mile that races like a short track.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of congestion there. It's not a wide racetrack. I think so. There was something I had to say, and like I always do, I kind of lose my train of thought because you said Phoenix, and I'm like, I want to talk about Phoenix for more reasons than just talking about on the microphone to the people on the other end of this thing. But I think I think Chevy's going to be up to speed pretty quick. I think what you said is 100% valid. If you're expecting Toyota to slow down at 1.5 miles, you're smoking the reefer.
Wait, are you say you got that? No, wait. Okay, wait. All right. Steven, we thank you for being on. This has been a lot of fun and really eye-opening. But at the end of every show,
oh boy,
we get a little sideways with an off-the-wall question from Ashley J. Stang. She's been doing this for like 2 years now. It's crazy how long we've had.
We started in like October 2015, maybe.
Yeah, crazy.
Like that.
So this one starts with a news headline. Apparently, some idiot, we'll say, bit into a smartphone battery and it blew up into his face. So the headline being, "No, biting a smartphone battery is not a good idea." I don't know whatever happened there. So she asks, "What's the dumbest thing you put in your mouth and then thought, oh poop? That was a terrible freaking idea." On the words that I paused on, you can probably imagine what those were.
Ashley didn't pull any punches on language.
So here's the crazy part, Sherwin. I saw this question, and then I immediately had 2 things pop in my mind.
Oh, no.
So I've put 2 different things into my mouth that I totally regret having done. Right?
Should we let Steven go first?
Steven, I will give you some time to think. How's that sound?
Oh, okay. That's fair.
Okay.
All right. So... I'll try to be quick on my 2. So number 1 is there. So there was this plant. It's all right. There was this plant in our lobby of the old office that we used to be at, right? And it was really shiny, and we didn't know if it was real or fake. So I just took a little nibble off the end just to see, like, all right, is this like plastic or is it actual, cellulose, real plant? Right, and it bit off just fine, and it.
So eating is the way you were trying to tell this.
Yes,
that's how you're.
Yes. All right. Fake plants they're pretty convincing nowadays, right?
Well, that's true.
There's technology and stuff. So I took. I'm talking about the little.
Were you dared to do this?
No. We were just trying to figure it out. I said, "Here, I'll tell you," and I'm talking about the little spot. I wasn't eating, a huge leaf or nothing. I just took the littlest.
Like Ken is giving us that little end of the. Like the ghost pepper.
Oh, yeah. And then you're on fire for days. So here's the thing. I didn't think about it, right? 10 minutes later, I'm in the bathroom staring at the mirror. Half my face is drooping, and I can't feel it. And I go, well, this wasn't good.
So you ate Bell's palsy plant.
I don't know what happened, but whatever they spray onto that thing or whatever that thing is made of is not for human consumption. And I'm glad I only ate like a little tip of it to whatever that was. Man, that shouldn't be allowed. I mean, I say that, but then again, it's like if my obituary said, man eats random plant at work
and dies.
And dies, I think everybody would just like click past that one. Like, well, of course, you don't eat random plants, dumbass. So,
right.
Right.
It's like that scene in Jurassic Park where like they're like the paleobotanist is like what's her name, Dern. She's like, you got a plant here, it looks pretty, but it's poisonous.
Right.
So we've got to dig through this giant pile of shit to see if there's any evidence of them having eaten it.
The only other thing I did a butter bar challenge one time.
Oh no!
Which is eat as much, eat the butter bar as fast as you can. Yeah.
That's probably better than cinnamon, right?
Oh yeah,
the
for
cinnamon
sure.
challenge is pretty rough.
And so I decided that I wasn't necessarily trying to win, but if I lost, it wasn't because I ate the butter bar and somebody ate the butter bar before me, right? Like I
see what you're saying.
So
I
took
win on speed.
Oh yeah. So I took serious hunks out of this butter bar, and ended up. I mean, y'all think about this. You take a big old hunk out of this butter bar. It's cold. The only way to get butter like down is to like kind of swish it around a little bit, and then suddenly the consistency's starting to get to you, and suddenly a few other things, and so I yacked that thing right up into the trash.
Jesus.
So, I lost the butter bar challenge, but again, it wasn't due to somebody.
It's due to you didn't keep it down long enough.
Right. Like I said, I'm not going to eat a whole butter bar and lose. That's horrible. So I might as well eat it as that. So anyway, all right. So Sherwin, you're up.
So mine's like way more recent, which is not okay.
Well, now I did the plant thing 2 years ago.
All right. Okay. Well, so this is still
my mid-30s.
So I'm gonna claim this is being accidental. All right.
Bullcrap.
Yeah. No. For sure. When you hear the story,
Right,
you'll understand. So the local bar up where I live that I go with all the guys I used to work with is Taco Mac. It's a local chain. They got like amazing amount of beers, and like there's a contest. You score points and all that stuff. And so they had a beer that just looked kind of was like, okay, well this it's called Omaha Blackberry Wild Ale. And what a wild ale, y'all, is it's kind of a tarty thing. It's it's kind of like a sour. It's not totally a sour. Usually they're a little bit sweeter than sours. And so the server comes along and brings it, and you're like, it overflowed a little bit when they were pouring it, so it kind of like it dripped across the table.
Right.
And up wafted from the dribble was a perfect mix of vomit and diarrhea water. And I was like, maybe my nose is not working good today.
Right.
So I take the beer, and thankfully it was a little 11-ounce pour, right? The pinky out beer.
Yep.
And I give it a sniff. God almighty, it smells the same. And then I have a sip, and I go, well, damn, it don't taste as bad as it smells. And but everybody sees my reaction. Like my face is doing the,
this
like
is gross
turning
thing.
pale. Yeah. This is disgusting. And at this point, unbeknownst to me, at the bar, all the regulars that are bar people, like, so we're sitting at a high top in the bar area, but all the bar people have watched, like they know this tap handle. Because like the bartenders have all they've coerced all of their good customers into trying this disgusting beer, and all of them had the same reaction.
Tell me this.
And so they watched her for a full pour, like 11 ounce, which is a full pour, and they're like, "Who ordered that?"
What moron?
That guy over there.
All right.
And so, unbeknownst to me, I have an audience wider than just my table. And I'm like making the faces, and I'm going, this is the nastiest thing I've ever smelt in my life. I feel like I'm drinking out of a toilet. Like somebody that's had a really bad day, actually. And ultimately, I decided, I was like, there's not one way to do this. And I pinched my nose, and I chugged it. and the last swallow was like, all
Did
right, I got it down. And like people from the bar, like old guys, like retired looking guys, came over and like systematically shook my hand
for
And
being
I'm
the first guy.
I don't even like. So now I have like star status at this bar that's not my regular location because I drank this beer that literally
fantastic.
smells like a half and half combination of vomit and diarrhea water.
Steven, close us out. Worst thing you've ever put in your mouth?
Well, I think the worst thing I think I have ever done as far as that's concerned is many years ago, somebody bet me $20 to eat some frog legs. And I will have to say, yeah, forever all the the people that say it tastes like chicken and it smells like chicken, and it does not.
Oh boy.
There's no consistency to chicken at all.
Kind of
It's
chewy.
more of it's more of a gummy bear on a bone, and it
I like it.
stinks worse than I think you could think of. I don't know. There's probably a lot of things that you can think of that stinks pretty bad, but it does. It smells bad. It tastes bad. But for $20, when many years ago when you're in college, you do a lot of
Absolutely.
stupid
$20
things.
was a gold brick.
I ate the butter for free.
I bought the beer that I drank. It was $9.
Yeah. Somebody pay me. I'll eat the butter. $20 right now. Shoot. Well, Steven, do us a favor. Close us out. Tell the folks what's going on. Tell us what makes North Wilkesboro great and where everybody can find you.
North Wilkesboro is great because it was the foundation of NASCAR, and it still is the soul of NASCAR. It's the soul of motorsports. NASCAR and motorsports and racing belong in Wilkes County from 1947 to 1996 when racing ended. There's been an economic loss within the county itself that is now approaching $45+ million. This has been a huge. This is just a huge statement as to what racing facilities across America put back into the local economy. And Wilkes County, is a county that has grown over the years, and it's just not the old moonshine. They're now into wine. It's moved past the agriculture, and there's still a lot of that there. But, racing could bring a lot of jobs and a lot of community reinvestment back into that town, which has just been devastated by the track closing. So it makes it great because it really needs it's the foundation of the county, really. In our opinion, you coming into the county, you see the superstructure. When you leave the county, you see the superstructure and the old Winston sign out there. So the soul of NASCAR and racing in general has never left that county, and people really would just love to have it back. And for anybody that wants to check us out, we're on Twitter at Save the Speedway. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/North Wilkesboro Speedway. You can always find us there, ask questions. We're always around. We're glad to engage anybody out there that has ideas, questions, just wants to chat, whatever the case may be. We're always around.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being on the show. Steven, stick around for a few minutes, and we'll get right back to you. Otherwise, Sherwin, it's time to close this thing out. Whoop. Y'all know where to find us. PTM Podcast on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, everything else.
YouTube.
PTMpodcast.com. YouTube, go check out the channel.
Live right
and
now.
all that stuff going on. Fun stuff. It's been really great the last several episodes having folks on. I've learned a ton in 3 episodes, and I don't know, but I'm waiting on the Jesse Iwuji shirts are coming in soon. The order is shipped. We're gonna have those in. That's gonna be awesome. Thank you so much to Steven Wilson for being on here and talking about North Wilkesboro, and man, how cool is that? Anyway, y'all know where to find me, Tailgate Mayor at Tailgate Mayor, and we'll see y'all next week. Sherwin?
Yeah, I think most of y'all know where to find me as well. Andrew Sherwin, Sherwin at Pregame Engineer on the Twitter, and at Andrew L. Sherwin on the Instagram.
Absolutely. We'll talk to y'all next week. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, so we're up Tuesday, and all you
Tuesday,
Braves
yeah.
fans,
Like 4 days.
y'all
5
are
days.
y'all are gonna enjoy this one.
All right. We'll see y'all next week. Whoop, whoop. All right, there it is. Still live on YouTube, but closed out the recording and the show and everything. And thank y'all, everybody on the YouTube, for joining us and having some fun. And Steven, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. A lot of great questions out there. I'm sure there's probably a lot more questions out there that people have, but again, they are always welcome to reach out to us.
You hit the nail on the head when you just said great questions. The questions that we get from folks sometimes just blow my mind. Like, wow, these folks are just writing the show sheet for us.
Well, I mean, it's a good strategy to ask folks to do that for you, because their perspective is obviously not one you can always generate on your own.
Right. So yeah, that was really cool. So yeah, man, this is it's. I was excited about this. Sherwin was excited about this. Folks were excited about this, and hopefully, they'll be excited to listen later on and stuff.
We'll definitely get that out there for you guys. We'll get it on Twitter, Facebook. Again, I do appreciate you giving me the time to come on here, talk about the track, and all the exposure that we can get one way or the other. It helps the effort at the end of the day. People, as I said, people talk about this thing, and every time that it's brought up, it just generates a ton of just interest back into the track, back into the county. And hopefully one day, with the right amount of interest and the right amount of generation of, working out there, something has to get done, because we've seen it happen in the past, and I think it can going forward.
Absolutely. All right, man. We'll let you. This
has been.
Let you get moving.
We
on.
really appreciate your time. It looks like we took almost 90 minutes of it, and we're just as thankful on our side for you to come in, especially. So this is kind of what we do: is we try to be kind of off the mainstream, because obviously we're going to get silly at times and sort of do our thing. But this is as much about giving something that the listeners want to hear as it is about us wanting to learn things too.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of personal pride. Like, I mean, I wanted to talk to you like just personally, but because this is what we do, we hit the record button and other people get to hear it too. And that's what's so cool about today's media opportunities with podcasting.
Yep. So with that, we'll say see you later to the YouTube folks. Thank you for being on. Thank you for hanging out. It's been really cool.
Live chat was fire tonight.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And the trivia questions, everything. Thank y'all for being on. We'll see y'all next time.